In the tumultuous world of the California Gold Rush, we invite you to hear the story of Ellen Wilson, known to many as Texas Ellen. A shrewd and successful businesswoman, she was a fixture in the lively town of Coloma. While her profession may have been outside the social norms of the time, her actions within the community were a testament to her generous spirit. This is a story of a resilient woman who, in a time of great hardship, commanded respect and showed remarkable kindness, proving that a person's character is measured not by their circumstances, but by their deeds.
When the cry of gold echoed across the world, people came from all over in search of a way to get rich quick. Soon, men were setting up law offices, general stores, saloons, anything a miner could possibly need. But there were a few things those men were lacking, and I had it all. I was born in Canada, and while the story of my journey has been lost in time, I will tell you the version I prefer to have remembered. I arrived in Coloma, along with my husband in 1850. Like so many others, my husband was a dreamer. Had he not been, my life may have turned out differently. He only wanted what was best in life, and the idea of picking gold up off the streets wasn't unfathomable to him. Oh, it was an elephant of a lie, and I knew better. But there was no arguing with that man. I could have stayed back home like most of the women back then and not made the long and difficult journey, but being separated was horrible enough as a thought, let alone the truth. We were confident that we would be successful. At the time, I was known as Ellen Wilson. I was 28 when we rode into Coloma. Mr. Wilson and I set up a tent like the rest of them. He and the other men would be up panning before the sun came up and wouldn't get back from that there river until after dark. And usually when he came home, he was empty-handed and dog-tired. We were starving, cold, and I could see the dreamer in my husband slowly fading. After a while, my husband got wind that there was more gold being found downriver. He decided to go, but told me to stay. It broke my heart, but I believed him when he said he'd come back for me shortly. The days turned into weeks, and he never returned for me. I hated to think what happened to him, and I swore to myself that I would never love again. I had run out of money. I needed to find a means to live. I thought maybe I could cook and wash for the miners. But the other women in town had already taken up those occupations, and even they were barely scraping by. I had run out of options, and I knew what I had to do. I sure as hell wasn't going to let myself starve. I'd rather be known as a woman of ill repute than a beggar on the streets. Now, some versions of my story state that I was already well versed in how to run such an enterprise. But this is my story as I prefer to tell it. Sometimes it helps to be a little mysterious. I rented a 5-bedroom house and opened it up as a place where a weary miner with a little bit of gold dust could have a good time. I was able to hire 5 women, a cook, and a bartender to help me. I bought all new furniture and other goods to supply them. My inn became known as the Lone Star of Texas, and I became known as Texas Ellen. I didn't have to work anymore, and I treated my employees with the utmost respect. If there was one word of disrespect from a man to one of my girls, he was immediately thrown from the inn and never allowed to return. I adjusted to my new way of life surprisingly quickly. My clientele had grown large, along with my reputation. Oh, I saw the way those Piety Hill women would look at me and whisper to their friends as I'd walk past them on the street, lifting both sides of my dress instead of just my right when I'd come to a step. I couldn't care less what those women thought of me. At least I could afford all the latest fashions from the East, along with any other delicacy I desired, such as coffee, sugar, or chocolate. Some would wonder why I didn't go back home when I'd earned enough money. I knew my family wouldn't understand how I came up with the money, and I'd be more lonely there than I was here. The house sold a few times, but I was always able to continue to run my business there. The third owner, Edward McCabe, was a sickly man who on his deathbed deeded me the property. Once again, luck had come my way, only to vanish in 1 month when McCabe had recovered and took back the deed. Still, I wasn't evicted, and the Lone Star carried on. I was grateful for the property. In the early days of the gold rush, working women only had rows of tents in the meadows. And while there were other such establishments in Coloma, I stand by the Lone Star of Texas as being the best of them all. Unfortunately, the good times for the people of Coloma had started to run thin, and the easy gold was gone. After a few years, people realized that there were no fortunes to be had here and left for larger cities or rumors for better claims elsewhere. But I stayed. This was my home. One of the challenges for the folks heading west was the threat of disease and the lack of good care. In 1852 and 53, smallpox and cholera raged through the area, and even more people left. I can't deny that the thought didn't run through my mind too, but something told me to stay, so that's what I did. To me, calling Coloma home meant that regardless of one's profession, we care about the community. I had nursing skills, so I would saddle up and ride off to care for the sick and comfort the dying. Most of the miners were still living in tents, so I temporarily closed the Lone Star and opened it up as a warm, dry place for people to receive care, recover, or die as peacefully as possible. After the epidemic, life returned to normal. That is until one evening in March of 1855. I decided to treat myself to an evening of enjoying my establishment with the company of friends. After all, I deserved it, didn't I? A man asked me to dance, and I agreed. Lost in the music, we twirled around in a lantern-lit saloon, and for a moment, I finally felt contentment in my heart. Unbeknown to me, a former client of mine, Mr. York, was watching us through the smoke-filled window. I refused to continue to see Mr. York because I felt as though he was falling in love with me. In a jealous rage, he pulled out his gun, aimed at my dancing partner, and fired. But his drunken hand shot me instead, and I died instantly. Another story is that 3 men were fighting, and an errant gunshot came through the window and hit me. Maybe I prefer the more romantic version. But all I really remember is that I died that night. Some say I was deeply mourned by those who knew me. You wouldn't know it when it came time to bury me. Back in those days, it was considered immoral to bury a woman of my profession in consecrated grounds. It took some convincing by those who knew me, but because of my many generous acts to the people of Coloma, it was agreed that I would be the exception. I was given a small ceremony and laid to rest. My grave remained unmarked for 30 years. Later, my friend John Covington was buried near me. His headstone later said in an obituary, "This headstone now protects 2 souls, both who came to make their fortunes in the mines." My story is carried on to this day, with people visiting my grave and leaving coins. Though I don't know if I'm deserving of such an honor and respect, my spirit is grateful. So the next time you're in Coloma, come visit my grave and leave a penny or 2 on me.